Soil amendments from animals, such as manure and manure-based compost, are valuable additions to the soil on the farm or in the garden. As these amendments are used, they add organic matter to the soil, they release nutrients as they decompose, and using these amendments is a valuable way to take a waste stream and put it to useful purpose. However, we must remember that using manures carries risk. Manures can contain the germs that can make people sick. This video will talk about manures and will contrast manure and compost. We'll also talk about safe ways to use manure and compost, and we'll talk about how to safeguard compost piles on the farm or in the garden. Manures and compost carry different levels of risk, and they're used differently in the garden or on the farm. Manures typically contain the germs that make people sick, and it's a good practice to allow a period of time for these organisms to die off in the environment. Allow 120 days from when you apply manure to a bed or to a field before you harvest a crop from that field. It can be a good practice, for example, to apply manure in the fall and then plant that bed or that field in the next spring, again allowing for that sufficient time period for organisms to die off in the environment. Compost, if it's been properly prepared, is considered to be safe. Again, the heating process has eliminated any germs that might be present in the compost, and compost can be used up to close to the day of harvest of the crop from the bed. Compost is commonly stored in piles on the farm or in the garden, and the compost pile should be protected from contamination. A compost pile is a very attractive place for feral cats, for example, to defecate. It's also a place the wild animals might visit, and it's a good practice to protect that pile. We don't want a pile of compost that is microbially safe to be contaminated through the action of an animal. So place a tarp or some other protection over the compost pile and anchor the edges so that it is secure in place. Soil amendments from animals, such as manure and compost, are valuable additions to the soil on the farm or in the garden, but these additions must be used properly. Remember that anything that contains manure, be it manure, stable bedding, manure teas, could potentially contain the germs that make people sick. Compost, on the other hand, if it's been properly produced, is considered to be safe. Think about the interval between the application of manure and when you're going to harvest a crop. Allow 120 days. Compost that has been properly produced is safe and can be used much closer to harvest. And remember to protect your compost pile. Place a tarp or some other protection in place to keep clean compost from becoming contaminated. I'm Patrick Byers, Horticulture Field Specialist and Produce Food Safety Specialist with University of Missouri Extension.